Okay, I think we can proceed. Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me? My name is Ewade Adeyemo. I'm going to be moderating the next session, which is the Job Application Masterclass. And I have here with me a speaker, Mrs. Margareta Stoicheva, and she's the recruiter for Adidas Central Europe, and she's responsible for talent acquisition. So thank you to the organizers once again. I think I got the job for one of the most interesting sessions because NISIG is an association of scholars and professionals. And the job application masterclass is actually one of the most important sessions for us. So thank you guys for giving me this slot. So this session is actually a bit different from the others because the speaker has actually prepared a presentation. So it wouldn't be like a normal moderation session. So she would give a talk, a presentation, and afterwards would take care or deal with all the questions you guys might have. So I would be passing the baton to her pretty soon, and she would introduce herself and then go on with her presentation. But in the meantime, I'm pretty sure all of you have questions, so you can just type in your questions in the chat box. And for those who are watching via YouTube or over YouTube, you can also insert your questions and I would collate everything. And before the end of the session, there would be a dedicated time for tackling or dealing with all the questions you guys have. So without wasting much of our time, I would pass the baton on to our speaker. I'm sure we're all eager to hear what she has to say today. So yes, Margareta, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva, for introducing me, and thank you guys for having me for a second year. I'm super delighted to be here again. And I hope that from the session today, I'll try to be as helpful as possible for all of the participants who logged online. I did prepare some slides and I would like to present. However, let's keep it as an open session. If you guys have any questions to the slide that I'm presenting, or if something is not clear, I mean, feel free to ask at any point. You can stop me at any time you want. I will now try to share my screen with you. I just need to figure out how this happens. Well, maybe some help from your side. Do you know how I can do that? I think you're muted.
On your screen, yeah, I think you have the right. You're supposed to have
the share
given and then yeah, or the
so here it
perfect.
is. Can you guys see it?
Yes, yes,
Lovely.
we can.
Lovely. Okay. I will start with a short introduction so you guys know who I am. My name is Margareta Stoicheva, as you already know. I originally come from Bulgaria, but I'm based in Germany. I've spent the last 11 years there, currently 28, and I'm a recruiter for Central Europe and Europe at Adidas. My area of responsibility covers, very diverse roles in the area of sales, marketing, business development. And for 2 years, I have also been the lead recruiter for all of the Adidas stores within Germany, which are currently 24. So also retail is part of my specialty. I have a bachelor degree in international business. I graduated in Nuremberg in Germany. And I'm currently working on my Master of Science in Psychology and Security and Defense. This one is expected by the summer of next year. So hot fingers crossed for me. From the session today, these are the milestones that I will try to cover for around 1 hour. I would like to take you to the 3 most important stages when you're preparing your application. We'll start, of course, with the most important document, which is the resume. I'm going to speak about the cover letter, even though I'm not going to spend a lot of time there, just a couple of tips and tricks. And I'm going to spend some time talking about the interview, because I think this is one of the most important stages when you are, applying for a job. Question and answer session, I have it at the end, but as I said already, your questions are welcome at any point of the presentation. Just raise your hand. Before I go into the content itself, I would like to draw your attention on how important the network is. You know, when we're applying for a job, we're all thinking, okay, we need to prepare documents, we need to submit them, we need to go through the official process, etc., etc. But what I've learned lately is how important the network is. And how important social media platforms like LinkedIn, like Sing, even Facebook nowadays, even Instagram nowadays are. So don't miss on that opportunity. There are so many ways to connect with people like me, recruiters, and you know, HR managers, hiring managers. Just use that opportunity to connect with us and have an unofficial chat even. This helps a lot. Don't focus too much only on the official processes. Networking today could be very, 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 very helpful, I have to admit. The resume stage. I would like to start with a small game here. I have a couple of slides of resumes, which are real. Of course, the actual data of the candidates I have substituted because of data protection. But right, it's a real example. This is what I want to say. I would like to ask you to find the mistakes in these slides. What do you think is wrong with these CVs when you see them? You have to put yourself into the shoes of a recruiter. What is the first thing you see on this one?
Sorry, Margareta, I don't think they can all, because this is a webinar, so they can't really speak, but I think they can type in their responses in the chat box, so we can
Okay, let's see what the chat box says in this case. Let me open it. Okay. Ewa, maybe you can help me with that. Do you see anything coming?
Yes, I can read some of the responses already. So someone said the picture's wrong. The picture's unprofessional. So that's actually the main thing people are speaking about.
It's an easy peasy one, right? It's a very wrong picture. Once you prepare your CV, really make sure that you're using a good picture. And from my personal experience, I have seen everything already. You cannot imagine it. I've even received CVs where people were doing selfies, super unprofessional. So yeah, that's something we need to pay attention to. Okay, the second one, I'll give you a tip here. We have two mistakes, or one thing that could be adjusted and improved, and one thing that's really wrong. Take your time, go through the different parts and tell me if you see something that's not really optimal. Maybe you can facilitate me with the answers that we received.
Yes, I still have responses from the previous page, and people were speaking about the date of birth. Oh, it not being correct. And then here I have a response that the fonts are different.
Fonts are different, yes.
And the use of colons as well. So the punctuation marks are also not correct. And then it's multicolored. Another response just came in.
The color is totally fine. I would say the color is totally fine. But I would draw your attention to the title. So you can't see the name of the candidate anywhere on this CV. It's written a CV, but you really don't know what the name is. It's a very common mistake, actually. For my surprise, many people forget to add their names on their personal CV, which is a super, you know, it's very weird, but it does happen many times. And also, the chronology is very inconsistent. Guys, when you're creating such documents, make sure that the information is, one, correct, and 2, that it's consistent, because once you have an inconsistent CV, that's already a red flag for recruiters and for colleagues who would be, checking your documents, that something is wrong, and that, we're asking, okay, what's your attention to detail if your chronology is not right on your personal CV. This is the last one. Actually, I have another one, but okay, 2 more. So it's a very easy peasy one. I think everybody can see what's wrong with this part. Eva, do we have any answers coming up already?
Yes, I have one. It's not properly constructed. It's too wordy.
It's
too much information.
Indeed, it's
And
too
I'm
much
trying to
information.
look on YouTube if we have any responses. There's no period of work, and then personal details are missing.
Yeah, well, this is only part of it, but yeah, indeed, it doesn't start with the personal details. However, I have only screenshotted the professional experience part, which is fine, but you guys are totally fine, are totally right. It's super wordy, too much text. Nobody can spend so much time reading such a text. Actually, scientific studies show that in general, recruiters spend a couple of minutes, depending on how much, couple of seconds, sorry. Depending on the experience of the recruiter, it's between 10 seconds and maximum, really the ultimate maximum would be 1 minute per CV. And this is how much you have to impress somebody and to tell your story to the recruiter. And you definitely don't want to put too much text that would put the person off from even reading it. This is the last slide. It's a bit difficult to spot what's wrong here, but maybe I can draw your attention to the law. What do you think is wrong with this screenshot from a CV?
So I would just read the responses so far.
Yeah.
So the use of logos.
Exactly.
Company logos.
Exactly. The use of logos. Pay attention to the copyright. It doesn't mean that you will get sued by a company or something, but a copyright is a very important topic, and it gets even more and more important together with the data protection. And in Europe, especially in Germany, they pay a lot of attention on that. So you definitely don't want to breach the copyright law. Good. I will spend some minutes talking about the CV in general. We said already that this is one of the most important documents that you guys would be creating as part of your application for a job. There is nothing wrong to have a couple of formats depending on the company you would be applying to. Always when you prepare your CV, keep in mind the job that you want to apply to and the company you want to apply to. It's not the same if you want to send your CV to, let's say, Siemens or Bosch, which are known to be very conservative or traditional companies, as opposed to Puma, for example, or Adidas, which are companies which operate in, fast-moving consumer goods, discovering the new trends, always being very dynamic, always being very modern. The format of the CV you would be using would be very different. You need to consider the culture of the company, the image of the company as well, and the values that this organization has. According to that, you can prepare your CV to make it more appealing and to increase your chances. So there is absolutely nothing wrong if you have different formats and couple of formats, not just one, for your CV. In addition to that, I would like to say that the starting point for creating a CV would be always the job description. Read it very carefully. I don't think that many applicants are paying enough attention on the job description. Majority of them, and you would be surprised, I was also surprised with that, they only see the title, they see some of the requirements, and they're done. They're ready. They have decided if they want to apply or not. But the job description could be very helpful for you, especially when preparing your CV. There is nothing wrong if you would like to copy some of the keywords to your CV. to give you a small, a small secret from my side, if we recruiters, the majority of us, we don't have software that is, pre-screening automatically CVs for us. Some colleagues do, majority are still doing it manually. So when we do it, we sit together with the job description and we compare the CV and the experience of that candidate towards the job description. What am I exactly looking for? What tasks, what responsibilities, what qualifications? And I would be always comparing this. Of course, it would increase your chances if you have a couple of keywords or some information that matches to the job description, but never overdo it. You definitely don't want to, copy paste the whole job description on your CV. Also, another tip that I can give you is run the CV through a couple of friends or a couple of colleagues you trust and you believe. It's sometimes we're very subjective when we create documents. We're thinking everything is good. Let me add this information. Let me add that information. It's never enough. You always want to put more. You always want the person to know more about you. But from my personal experience, it shows that it's very good to obtain feedback when you create a CV. And don't take it personally, never ever. Be open for the feedback, be open to change. Don't be narrow-minded in that. You definitely don't want to be. I will start with a couple of golden rules. I already touched upon them, but just to make sure you remember them, always create your resume in accordance with the company/industry and the role you would be applying to. Always. The CV, the resume of a financial controller, for example, would look very different than the CV of a designer. Depending on the skills that are needed for the job, you want to expose these skills on your CV and make them visible there as much as possible. Another golden rule would be start with the most relevant information structured chronologically. You definitely don't want to put all kinds of information there. You want to take the most relevant pieces, put them in the CV, make it easy to read, make it quick to read, and add it chronologically. Why chronology is so important? If you put yourself into the shoes of a recruiter, the CV is the first, it's usually the first touch point that I would have to a candidate, right? So you don't know that person, you don't know his or her story, and the CV, it actually helps you build that puzzle. It's pieces of the puzzle, pieces of information, and while reading it, you are creating a story about this person. So adding it structurally definitely facilitates that process and definitely, would increase your chances of being spotted. The structure. After the presentation, I have a couple of handouts for you, which follow a step-by-step guide, how you can create your CV, what's important, but I will also cover this topic a bit in this slide. Must have and good to have, as you can see on the left-hand side. So starting with the name, picture, and personal details. I would like to stop to the picture. In Germany, according to, you are not obliged, according to the law, to have picture or not. It's your own decision. I would definitely encourage you to put it, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, you don't have to. When it comes to the personal details, details like your birth date or birth year, your marital status, it's not a must. It would definitely be helpful if you put your residency or a nationality. This is because it's connected to the visa. It's nothing you need to put, but it's very nice to have because it's a prerequisite for starting some positions, and it's or for the notice period that you would have. When I say notice period, I mean more the time from the interview, from accepting the offer to actually starting the position. Good to have is a profile summary. I wouldn't say that I'm spending a lot of time reading that usually on the CVs. My primary focus in the professional experience in the education field. But if you would like to have it, if you think that it complements well your CV or the structure of your resume, feel free to put it, but not too wordy. Not too wordy. A must-have and the most important part of the body of a CV is the professional experience and the education. Always professional experience coming on top, education following. In education, please make sure you don't put everything. You don't need everything. For example, the primary school or high school, as long as you have bachelor, as long as you have master degree, high school is not that important. So let's not steal space and valuable space on your CV with such an irrelevant information. It doesn't really help you a lot. A must-have languages and technical skills. Nice to have soft skills and hobbies. If you don't feel comfortable with putting your hobbies because that could be seen as personal information, don't. However, I strongly encourage you to do it because, you know, when you're applying for a job, you're not just applying to the job itself. You want to be a valuable character, valuable piece inside of the team. So you have to be a good personal fit. And that's something, the hobbies could be very helpful for you. Tips and tricks. Easy to read. I already mentioned it, but I will mention it again. I just want to make sure that you guys, after the presentation, if there is something you remember from me, you take the most important piece of info. And that's pretty much it. It's summarized on this slide. Make it always easy to read. Align the language with the job description and the company. Fact-based and concrete data. You don't want to be vague. Always mind the relevance. So not only information, but the relevant piece of information. No typos, for sure. That's a definitely no-go for any official document, especially your personal resume. Don't make it longer than 2 pages. This applies in the majority of cases. Of course, if you are applying, for example, in IT or engineering, when it's important to mention the projects you've been working on, then you can have longer than 2 pages. But for the majority of professions, like in finance, marketing, or I don't know, retail even, 2 pages is totally enough and should be enough. No false or vague information. Keep in mind everything that you put in your CV could come as a question during the interview if you get to the stage of an interview. So anything you put on the CV, be prepared to get questions on that. So no false information. You definitely don't want to lie on your resume. No documents intended for other companies and roles. You will be surprised, but it's very often the case when we receive CVs intended for Puma, for example. And that's definitely not nice to read and nice to see. Good. Do you guys have any questions to the current point? I will make a pause here to give you the chance to ask me.
Yes, Margareta, I told you we have the most interesting session. I already have a long list of questions.
Happy to help. If I can answer them, I will be very happy.
Well, you actually touched a bit on the picture because that seems to be a major issue. So someone asked if it was compulsory for pictures to be included in the resume or in the CV. And then there's been a bit of discussion about that, especially on YouTube, because someone is of the opinion that it does more harm than good. So maybe you can shed a bit of light on that, because the opinion was that it triggers some sort of bias. So it does more harm than good. So maybe you can speak about that a bit.
Right. As I mentioned before in the session, it's not a must. You can put it if you're comfortable with putting it. You don't have to. You're not obliged. I've read studies on this topic because I was personally interested in that as well. It turned out that for women, sometimes putting the picture could actually harm you more than it could help you. For guys, the percentage is actually in favor of pictures. Once you have a picture, your chances are more, but slightly more. It wasn't, I think it was something like 14% more to get to an interview stage. That was a very interesting trend for me personally. I was thinking it's the other way around, but it turned out not to be. Multiple studies on that, but there is no opinion in the professional field between the recruiters, between hiring teams and HR teams. there is no golden rule on the picture.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I have a question. Or there's one question about the CV being in German or in English. What's your opinion about that?
Right. Match it to the job description, I would say. If you see the job description in German, do it in German. Usually in the job descriptions in the requirement field, you have the requirements for the language. In Germany, definitely, always, it would be very helpful for you if your documents are in German. Companies like Adidas, for example, for us, our official language is English. So if I receive the CV in English, there wouldn't be any problem with that. But if you go for a more conservative company like Siemens, for example, and you want to do HR, German would be a must. So you would have higher chances if you do it in German.
Okay, thank you very much. You touched a bit on the filtering software. You said some companies actually utilize that, and there was a question if you have certain tips, because how does it work? The question was framed this way: how does it work? Is it that if there's a certain job description and then you don't match or tally your CV to that job description, then it would automatically sort of throw your CV away? So if you can shed some light on that and on tips as to how to avoid that.
So that part of matching the CV to the job description, I mean it in a sense that this would increase your chances to be spotted. But it doesn't automatically mean that if you don't have the same keywords, you would get disqualified. That's not the case at all. Disqualifying questions could be something like, if you don't speak German and German is required for for this position, as in sales, for example, very often the clients we're working with are only German speaking, so German would be a requirement. This could be a disqualifying question if you don't speak it. Disqualifying question would also be in case, do you have a work permit for Germany? And if you don't have one, you might be disqualified on the basis of this.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one more question with respect to the CV. So you mentioned professional experience before education. So what if someone is studying again and it's a much higher level of study? So should the educational experience still be placed after professional experience?
It would be. Once you start working, you are putting the professional experience on top. For example, me, I'm working full time, but I'm also studying on the side. I'm doing master degree right now. In my personal CV, the professional part is on top, and then my education that it's ongoing is second.
Okay, I have one more similar question. So if the professional experience is different from the educational background, what's more important to include in the professional experience?
It depends on the job you're applying for. If your professional experience is relevant for the job you would like to apply for, obviously this is what it counts. If your education counts more, then maybe put a bit more information in that field, but don't mix the fields, never ever.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's one simple question here. So if the CV is for academic purposes, say for a PhD position, should it follow the same or similar format to what you had described earlier?
This would be then a bit different. I'm focusing now on CVs which you send when you're applying for a job. If you're applying for a specific degree or specific, educational degree, then you might change it a bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Then there was a question on the German hidden job market.
Right.
Someone spoke about that or mentioned that he or she came across it while applying for jobs. Can you shed some light on what that is?
Can you repeat the question, please, again?
The question was framed this way: what is the German hidden job market? Verdeckter Stellenmarkt. Does that ring a bell?
I would have to check this one. I'm not sure what the question applies to, but I will pick this up and maybe at the end we can talk about it again.
Okay, thank you. So just a few more questions before you proceed. So if you mentioned in your CV that you worked in a particular company in your home country, do companies in Germany verify if you actually worked in the mentioned company or not?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do, depending on the job, especially when it's a very senior job. Cross checks are allowed and background checks are allowed, and they do happen.
Okay, thank you very much. So what about career changers that have no university degree in a particular field, but they have significant experience? So is there a way around that? What should they highlight in the CV?
Right, experience is what counts more, I believe. When you're creating a CV, you should create the following mentality, and you should follow the following thought process. What information should I put in the CV that would make it relevant for me to get this job? You want to increase your chances to get a particular job. So in your CV, you would like to put the relevant experiences that you have, the relevant education that you have, anything that has to do, anything that has some touch points with this job. So there is no rule or golden rule, where should I put more text? This is something you can play with depending on the job you are applying for.
Okay, thank you. So there's a question on how you can apply for jobs which you have no experience for, but you have the academic qualifications for. So are there tips as to what to highlight or write in the CV?
You would then highlight more the papers you have written, or if you have any publications on that as part of your education. Maybe you have PhD on that. Write about the publications a bit more. Write about the relevant courses that you have successfully done. Maybe even the grades. Some company, I'm not a fan of considering grades and asking people to submit any grades that they did have, but some companies still do it, and some companies still pay a lot of attention on that, so it could be very helpful for you. In case your CV is not very strong for the role that you're applying and you don't have so much experience into that, in professional or in the educational background, then you need to do a very strong cover letter.
Okay, thank you very much.
That
So
would be
there are
my
two
tip.
questions. Oh, I'm sorry. There are actually two questions here that I think you may have answered, but I'll just read it just to confirm
Sure.
what you said. So, someone is asking, if you're applying for an internship or VEX student, should work experience still come before educational experience? And the other question, sorry, I just want to merge both of them together, is if internship is considered as professional experience as well.
Usually the internship is considered as part of the education, not really as part of the work experience. There is nothing wrong to put it in two sections. For example, you can have one section of work experience and one section of internships. For me personally, my CV is divided in this way.
Okay, thank you very
That
much.
would be my tip, but again, it's not a must. It's not a format that you would need to follow. Just make what makes most sense according to you and according to the job you would be applying to.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just take a few more questions because I'm seeing some questions with respect to the interview, and I know you would want to touch on that later on.
We
So
will
maybe I
touch
would,
on that. Yeah.
exactly. So I would just separate those questions and then we deal with that later. And then I have two more questions and we can proceed. So you
Okay.
mentioned that too much text, or the text shouldn't be too wordy. So how does one balance a CV where you need to show job experiences that are tailored for the job while sticking to just 2 pages?
Keywords. You don't need full sentences. Full sentences you have the chance to write in your cover letter. Cover letter is a document that complements your CV. So everything, that all the informations and all the relevant informations you are not able to put in the CV, they have to find their place in the cover letter. So maybe keep the balance between these two and use keywords. That would be my tip.
Okay, thank you very much. And then the last question before we proceed. So if someone has an MSc degree in a particular field, which is not computer science, for example, and wants to work in an IT firm, what's the best way to go about it without having to go back to school to study something related to IT?
Have you, well, in this case, you can't start as an IT without having the knowledge, right? Without completing some courses, without learning some coding language, etc., etc. So you would like to put on your CV what kind of online courses maybe, or face-to-face courses you have completed. Do you have any relevant projects that you have worked on or you have completed? Do you have any professional experience that touches upon the IT? That's
Okay,
pretty much it.
thank you. And the last question before you proceed, someone just dropped this. Is it mandatory to use the Europass format?
No, no. That's helpful. That was created to help people include the most relevant information and to know what structure the CV needs to follow. However, it's not a must, not at all.
Okay, thank you
No.
very much. I'll let you continue now. If not,
Yes.
we would spend the whole time
Okay.
answering questions, and then we go back to the question and answer session when you're done with the presentation.
Right. Then I would touch upon the cover letter topic. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. I would like you to guys know that the cover letter should be complementary to your resume. You don't want to put the same information in both the resume and the cover letter. And if there is one golden rule I can give you, and I give as a tip to everybody that apply to my positions, would be the resume should be all about you, your abilities, knowledge, experience, and the cover letter should be more going in direction of the company or about them. You want to start with a short, keep the cover letter short. You don't need more than 1 page. 1 page should be enough for you to convey the most important information and to encourage the company to take action and ask you more give you the chance for an interview, for example. You would like to start with a short introduction, then talk about the job itself, why you think you're the right candidate, what kinds of skills and experiences you believe are relevant for that job. Encourage the reader to take action. That's super important. You would like to engage with them. You would like to appeal to them, encourage them to or awake that desire for them to speak with you and see you as a good potential candidate. Always think about that. How should I write my CV to make it more appealing to the recruiter and to encourage them to give me a call, for example, or invite me for an interview? There is a 3-step process in creating that. Whom to address, that's a very important topic. If you can keep it direct, if you can address it directly to the hiring manager or the HR manager or the recruiter, you definitely want to do that. It could go a long way reading your name, to Margarita Stoicheva, for example, than to whom it may concern. It's a very small detail, but trust me, it could go a long way. The job specifications, I mentioned it already. Write in the cover letter, keep in mind the job description and what qualifications are needed, what the requirements are. And in the cover letter, you would like to touch upon these requirements and convince the reader why you have them, why you possess them. Step 3 would be always to take into consideration the company. So you can see here that the job specifications in the company, this resonates when the resume. This is something you need to consider also when you're creating your resume. So it's nothing really new. About the format of the cover letter, you don't really have to follow any specific format. There are many formats out there which are valid, which count. If I can give you a tip, if you have the possibility to use the same template for your resume and for the cover letter, that's definitely extra point for you. Keep it short, not too wordy, and you can always bold. If to make it easier to read, you can always bold some key phrases or key sentences that you would like to make sure the recruiter gets across or understands. Do's and don'ts, they are very similar to the resume. I'll read them very quickly. I just want to make sure you guys remember these. Your name and contact details are very important. the company name and the contact details. So in case you have the name of the recruiter or the hiring manager, you definitely want to use it. The job title. If you're applying, for example, to Mercedes and there are multiple positions you want to apply for, it's okay if you don't write the job description. You can upload only one cover letter. But if you're applying to only one role that you want, I definitely encourage you to write the job title as well in the cover letter. You want to cover the relevant skill set. You want to summarize in a nice and an easy to grasp way why exactly you are the preferred candidate and why you should be the preferred candidate. Speak their language means understand the company culture and use it in your own interest while writing. Ask them to read your resume and contact you. That call for action at the end is very important. Can you guys still hear me? Hope you do.
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Okay. No typos. Do not include your whole CV. The cover letter or the motivation letter should complement your resume. It shouldn't copy it one-to-one. Do not use the I too often. That's something that doesn't really, it's not nice to read. No false or vague information. Keep in mind is the same with the resume. If you get invited to an interview, everything that stays in the cover letter, you could get questions on that. So be prepared and don't lie. No documents intended for other companies or for other roles. I think this is pretty much easy to and very logical. Alrighty. Interview is the next. I think we want to spend more time on this section, but do you guys have any questions for the cover letter so far?
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, let's cover them.
Someone is asking if the cover letter needs to have a title.
No, it's exactly a letter. So you say, if you don't have the name, it's to whom it may concern or to Ms. Stoicheva, or it doesn't need to have a title.
Okay, thank you. So there are some questions related to cover letter and the CV, general questions. So what's your opinion or your take on the so-called vitamin Beziehung? So are there preferences for you as a recruiter? Does that actually work? Is it true that most people or the bulk of jobs are given out based on relationship or references from other people?
The vitamin B, yes.
Yes.
I don't think so. I think it depends a lot on the company. I can only speak from my experience in the company that I'm working at. We do have some talent pools. We do have information or more information about some candidates, especially if they're internal than for others. But we would like to reassure that we are successful in what we're doing. So that's why we have to reassure diversity and inclusion for everybody. And that's not possible if you don't have a fair process for everybody. I don't say that it never happens in the companies around Germany. I've heard of such stories. I can't say that this is always the case. However, it's a very good look to the network that I mentioned before. Could be the case that you're not given a role automatically just because you know somebody, but you could be given the chance to be invited for an interview and convince people. And that goes already a long way.
Okay, so this story about 70% of jobs in big firms, organizations being given to people who already know people inside, it's not exactly true.
You know, I can't comment on that because I haven't seen that study and I don't have the facts. I think it happens. I don't think that this is the golden rule, though.
Okay, thank you. So one more question in this regard. So is it more efficient to put effort into?
Can I add something here? Maybe something from my personal story. You know, I come from Bulgaria. I didn't know anybody at Adidas. I got 5 initial interviews to get to that job. And afterwards, I discovered that, I was also, there were other internal candidates applying for this position that I got afterwards. So my personal story is that it doesn't always work with vitamin B.
Okay, thank you for that, Margareta.
Yeah.
So, is it more efficient to put more effort into blind CV applications, more like the initiative applications, or just networking for referrals? So, what should we expend more energy on?
That's a very good question. I think it should be both. I think it should be both. I wouldn't say that networking counts more, because with networking you never know, it may work, it may not work. With when you prepare your documents, when you make them really in a good format, when you're answering when you're ticking all the boxes that of the perfect candidate, perfect hypothetically of course, then of course you would have high chances of being hired to the position. I can't say what counts more, because in life uncertainty plays a big role, and luck plays also a big role. My life philosophy is prepare yourself in the best way that you can, and let luck play a role as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So someone is asking if it's necessary to always include references, because there were references in your example.
Yeah, not a must. Not a must. Very often people write a reference available upon ask or upon requirement. It's not a must.
Okay, thank you. So the last questions to round up this session. And by the way, Margareta, would we have access to the presentation when the session is over?
Yes, I can submit it to you guys. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, because there have been lots of questions to that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the preferred or suggested salutation and ending for a cover letter? Should it be like a normal formal letter, or what's your take on that?
Depends on the company. For example,
Okay.
when I wrote my motivation letter for Adidas, I ended best sporting regards. I wouldn't send that to Siemens, for example. It should make sense according to the company you're applying to. You can start, if you have a name, you start with the name. If you don't have it, you start with to whom it may concern, or in German, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Sincerely yours, or I wouldn't write best, for example. You wouldn't like to end it as you end an email or a message to your friends. Keep it more formal, but there is no one phrase that you need to use every time.
Okay, and the very last question, sorry, this one just came in. Is it allowed to use different languages in the CV and the cover letter? Maybe one in English and the other in German?
You can have two formats. You can't mix. If your resume is German, you keep the cover letter in German, and the other way around.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think we can proceed to interviews.
All right, the interview. I think this is the most interesting part. I will start with a couple of golden rules. For the interview, you definitely want to be, expect the unexpected. Unknown task, unknown setting, unknown environment. There would be never a chance for you to really know 100% what the interview will look like. Keep in mind that many companies have also different interview processes. It could also differ from department to department in the same company, or from different markets. For example, if you're interviewing with Porsche United States, you could be in a different process, interview process than Porsche Germany, for example. Many of the companies start with IQ test or some kind of an online test, or a pre-screen call, or maybe both. The main body would be then face-to-face interview. Now with the coronavirus, it's not very possible to be face-to-face, it's more online, but it usually involves also a case study. So always be prepared for that. It could be your last interview, like the main interview could be your first and last, but you could also be invited to follow-up interviews with the team, for example. I'm giving you all that information just because I want to tell you that there is no one unified process that all companies follow. Each company has its own rules, and it depends a lot on the situation and on the job. So expect the unexpected, always. A way to prepare for that, however, is by knowing yourself and never stop exploring who you are and testing yourself. If you feel confident with your knowledge, with your expertise, you're more confident conveying that information to other people as well. So you definitely want to work on your confidence. Confidence comes when you're prepared and when you know yourself. The third rule would be to always be genuine and positive. You could put a mask to your face and you could try to play a role, but trust me, this is something that people spot and they see. And also you don't want to do it because it's not in your best interest. The interview, I see it this way. As a recruiter, the interview is an opportunity for me to see if that person is good for the role and if he or she would be a good fit to the team I'm recruiting for. But at the same time, it's a chance for the candidate to see, is the company the right company for you? Does the company have the right culture and the right values, or the same values as you do? Would the team be a good fit for you personally? That's why you don't want to play a role during the interview. And be positive. That always helps. The main types and stages, I touched upon them already. I just wanted to put them in the presentation so you have the materials afterwards. But the most important takeaway, if you have one takeaway from me today, keep in mind that there is no unified process for the interview stage. There are many books out there on the market that could help you prepare for an interview. My suggestion for you would be, do your homework about the company. You definitely want to know more about a company when you sit and speak with them. When it comes to the literature, I divide them in general and specialized. General is more to create the right mindset for you, to prepare you to go for a conversation. One of my personal favorites are You Smart Enough to Work at Google? I love this book because it's a food for thought. It gives you some good, food for thought, some good facts and ideas to consider. Then the specialized literature, as I mentioned already before, applying for an IT position in coding, for example, would be definitely very different if you're then applying for a financial position, for example. So there is some really good information on the market right now when it comes to the different areas that you would like to apply for, and I strongly encourage you to read it. Could be very helpful. Also, I already mentioned that some of the companies start with tests. So there are some free websites out there for IQ. IQ test is one of the most common. Not everybody use the IQ test, however. The 16 personalities, I'm not sure if you guys familiar with that. It's the Briggs-Myers test. They defined, so they build upon the philosophy and the work of Carl Gustav Jung. And on top of it, they created 16 personalities. Some of the companies are testing people for what exactly, personality they have, if they're introverts or extroverts, if they're more intuitive or fact-based. So this could be very helpful. For me personally, I did that test a couple of times. I always fall in the same category, and I have put this in my CV. Right. Okay, so the pre-screen interview and the test, they expect. So once you have an interview, you obviously need to prepare for relevant questions, and you want to know what. Technical skills and professional expertise is something that will definitely come up. So the first interview is a chance for me and my colleagues to get to know what exactly skills and what your skill set is, and if you're actually a good fit for the position that we're recruiting for. Company and industry related questions may also come up. We definitely want to see that people did their homework, that they know the culture of the company, that they know what we stand for, what our successes are, where we stand in the industry we're operating in. Right. The motivational questions. Of course, we would like to know why you want this job and why you are the preferred, best potential candidate for it. Salary expectations may come up. I know you would have many questions on that. Come prepared. Come prepared. There are very good websites out there that can give you good information on how much the salary should be. You don't need to have an exact number in mind. My suggestion and my tip for you would be always have a realistic range, the minimum you would like to get and and what you actually want to get, so the maximum. The visa and relocation questions, we already touched upon it in the CV. That's super important just because it plays a major role when it comes to how quickly a candidate can actually start working after the interview process and after the offer stage. What you need to do before preparing for an interview, again, you would like to sit down with the job description and your application documents. You might be getting questions on your resume and on your cover letter, so you definitely want to check what exactly cover letter, what exactly resume you sent. That specifically applies in cases where you have many formats of your resume, and when you changed it considering or depending on the job you have applied for, you definitely don't want to be surprised about your own documents. Don't read the answers, be authentic. I have had interviews where I have an online session, Skype online session, and I see that the person is reading. That's definitely something you wouldn't like to do. Concrete examples and concrete stories. Is fine to have a philosophy on how to tackle a problem. It's fine to speak generally about some topic, but if you don't have any concrete examples to, put on the table, and, if you don't have any personal stories to share, everything that you say could be taken as a bit flat. It doesn't really, it's not authentic. It's not really enough if you don't have examples. The websites that I have put over here, Glassdoor and Kununu, this is something that I mentioned. You would like to check them before an interview, even before applying for a position. These websites are platforms, online platforms, where people who already had interviews with specific companies share their experience, share the salary information, for example, or share specific questions that they have been asked, or share information about the interview process itself. So that's definitely you would like to check before. It's not a must, but it could definitely help you be, stronger during the process. Right. I have summarized here a couple of tips for you, what you need to do before the interview itself. I will start with the research. As I already mentioned before, you definitely want to write your homework and come prepared. Be on time. That's definitely something you want to do. Be on time. Nobody likes people who are late, and especially for important events. The resume, have it prepared. You don't need to have it always with you, but it's a good first impression if you have your documents ready with you. Practice makes perfect. Obviously, you would like to go through the list of interview questions. I have prepared, by the way, a handout for you. I will, submit it at the end of the presentation. It's not an exhaustive list of the interview questions you might get, but it's definitely some of the areas in which you would like to, look into and prepare yourself for. So practice how you would answer, the most common interview questions like strengths and weaknesses, motivation, your confidence, your success stories, your biggest failures. Prepare. Dress code. The dress code is a topic that comes very often, especially for in my situation. I work in a sporting industry and a sports good company. So the dress code for us, it would be a bit weird if you put a suit and we're all wearing, our jeans and the superstars or Stan Smith. So the dress code depends a lot on the company itself, the culture of the company. And there is nothing wrong with asking the recruiter or the hiring manager, depends on which one you're in contact with, for the dress code. It shows attention, it shows willingness, you know, to learn more about the company and to fit with the company culture. The handshake, I've put it there. I know it's a small detail, but pay attention on that. This is one of the first impressions that you give to the hiring manager or the recruiter. I've literally had situations when people shake my hand so harshly, so strongly that I need a couple of seconds afterwards to, you know, just realize what just happened to me. You definitely don't want to do that. So pay attention on that handshake. Right. Here I have put one rule. I recently learned about it. Actually, it was part of the materials of my last semester, and I find it very fascinating. I would like to share it with you. It's a rule of communication. They actually did studies on that, and they discovered that 55%, so if 100% is the communication, 55% is how we use our body language. And body language has everything to do with your facial expression, with your hands, with your body. Are you shaking too much? Are you playing with, you know, pen or something? So 55% is your body language. 38% is the tone of voice that you use. And only 7% out of everything you say, out of the hard fact that come out of your mouth, is actually being perceived by the other side. Very interesting statistic, very interesting information. Keep it always in mind. Could be very helpful. Right. During and after the interview, facial expression, you can see the woman over here. So smile, be authentic, and do eye contact. You definitely want to show that you're present. You don't want to move too much. You don't want to be very nervous or something. Just be very authentic and try to do an eye contact all the time. Coming prepared with a notebook makes a very good impression, but it's not only about the impression, it's something that you could be very helpful to yourself. If you have a notebook with you, you know, when you're under pressure, when there is a lot of information being thrown out there, you can't really grasp everything. And you might miss some important details, or you might forget them out of the adrenaline that it's in your mind in the process, in the interviewing process. So you definitely want to have a notebook with you so you can write down the most important, you know, information or facts that you would like to take away. Also come prepared with questions. As I said earlier, the interview is your opportunity to get to know the company, ask what counts for you. For example, if the working environment is something that very much counts and it's very important for you, ask this question, come prepared. The small talk is something that happens before, during, and after the interview. So you definitely want to be also prepared for that. Don't overdo it. Don't stress over that. Just keep in mind that happens and you need to be prepared. The other picture is again body language, but we touched upon it already. The thank you note is a very nice way how to end the interview, or maybe a couple of days afterwards, you can remind the recruiter or the hiring manager of yourself by just sending a very short, very humble thank you note. That definitely would go a long way. It's not a must, but it's a nice tip that I have for you. Good. I have a small game here, but I wouldn't like to go through the game. I would like to look into your questions because I'm sure you have many. Eva, do we have a long list of questions?
Yes.
I thought so.
Yes, we do, definitely.
Let's pay more attention on this then.
Yeah, people met. So one of the main questions I've been receiving is that I mean, now it's a bit of a weird time, so there are lots of online interviews. So do you have any tips as to, you know, do's and don'ts for online interviews?
Yeah. Do's and don'ts for online interviews. You definitely want to check the your environment first. You want to be somewhere where it's quiet, where you have a very good connection. I had many situations where we're speaking with candidates, the network breaks down. And trust me, according to the laws, to the Murphy's Law, it breaks down in the worst moment in the interview. So you want to be prepared with that. You want to test your camera, your microphone, your equipment. You definitely should have no problems with the equipment. Let me think about anything else. I think equipment is what counts most. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's someone is asking if you have any tips on connecting with recruiters on social media, especially on LinkedIn. Are there some tips on as to how that should be done properly?
You know, there is no golden rule on that, how this should be done properly. You can literally send them, you know, some invites, ask for a short coffee talk, or ask for 15 or 20 minutes of an online exchange or a phone exchange, or you can simply send them your CV with a short note of who you are, just introduce yourself. You want to also make it personal. So do your homework when it comes to the profile of the recruiter, where he or she did study, where he or she did live. Are there any courses, for example, that you guys have in common? Is there any company you have in common? Anything that you guys have in common with this person could be helpful for you to establish a quick rapport. Also, there are many online events currently taking place. So only by participating, by being proactive, by asking questions, that's also a way for you to connect with somebody.
Okay, thank you very much. So someone is asking if there are age limitations with respect to job applications. So are there limitations as to how old an applicant is supposed to be? And if there are such situations, how can one go about that?
So if there are, that would be called discrimination. So no, not at all. Maybe a minimum age. In Germany, you can start working as of 16 years, as far as I know, but there is no top age.
Okay.
No.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Do you have any tips for us on initiative applications?
The initiative applications. Keep them very short, keep them very relevant. You don't want to send, for example, if there is a company where you would like to work, say, I don't know, let's take Mercedes again. You definitely don't want to apply for sales positions and then supply chain management positions and then marketing positions, etc., etc. Have a very clear strategy in your mind. What is the department and what is the concrete job, or maybe 2 or 3 jobs that you would be striving for, and apply only for them. If you don't have a strategy, you might not be taken seriously.
Okay. Thank you very much. I actually have a very interesting question here. So this question has to do with hairstyles. Are they important for job interviews? And sorry, I just chipped this in here. For us, it's quite important because our hair structure is quite different for women of Afro descent.
Yes.
So sometimes we're at a loss. Should my hair, even for like the headshot, the professional pictures, should I leave my Afro out? Should I leave the big hair out? For you as a recruiter, is there something about the hairstyles, how people present themselves?
For me, as a recruiter, it doesn't really play a role. You can see that I have 2 colors on my hair as well. And sometimes it's straight. Sometimes I have like the, what is it called? Different hairstyles. I've seen people with applicants with purple hair. I've seen with pink hair. For me, it doesn't really play a role. And I don't believe that your hairstyle should be what counts for a job. It's what you can bring to the team, your personality, your experience, your knowledge. This is what counts, what kind of person you are.
Okay, but can we say the same for the more conservative companies, so for the more traditional companies?
You know, this is something that I really don't know. I think it still happens. I think that it fortunately still happens. You might benefit if you are, you have a smarter look, like with the suit and with for guys, the suit, even for women, maybe the hair, in a way that you could see your face. For example, if I go for an interview at some conservative company, I would definitely make my face more visible rather than the hair. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't really speak about other companies simply because I don't have experience working for them.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. That was very helpful. So there's one question on the best way to request for feedback after rejection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In my opinion, my colleagues, recruiters and the HR managers, they should be proactively giving feedback when they're rejecting somebody. I'm trying to do that every time I'm rejecting somebody, simply because I want people to be better next time when they apply. You can directly ask for that. If there is nothing wrong during the call, or if because of the adrenaline or because of the emotion you didn't have the courage, or you simply forgot, it's totally fine to drop them a message afterwards and say, hey, sorry, thanks a lot for the information. I was just wondering, is there anything concretely you can give me as feedback so I can do better next time? There is nothing wrong with sending a message. I actually had that situation with an internal candidate. I rejected her. I gave her feedback. But because of the emotions, she couldn't grasp it. A couple of days afterwards, she gave me a call and she very openly said, you know what, thanks for the feedback, but I just didn't get it. Can you give it to me again? That's totally fine. And it should be fine. It should be taken in a nice way by my colleagues. If they don't, I don't know, I would question their professionalism then.
Okay, thank you very much. So just a quick announcement, we don't have that much time. So the comprehensive summit brochure is available on the NISIG website, so nisig.de/summit. And I have one question here. So if during an interview, someone forgets a word in German, for example, if the interview is being conducted in German,
yeah,
do you have any tips on damage control, how one can take charge of the situation?
Yes, you can simply apologize and say, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I forgot the word. You know, we had it, I had it also with internal candidates. We're interviewing in English and they're German and they say, oh, sorry, I forgot this word in English. And then I'm like, say it in German, say it in Bulgarian, whatever language, just say it. Don't freak out. It's superhuman if you do that. We're all human beings, keep in mind that the interviewers, regardless of how senior they are, they also have situations when they are nervous and when they don't feel so confident, and that's totally fine. Just don't freak out.
Okay, thank you very much. So there's one question here on for people who are already working, is there some hard and fast rule as to the minimum amount of time they need to spend in a particular role before they can move on to another role, so they don't come off as unserious to recruiters?
That depends a lot. If you have been 6 months with on a certain role and then you apply for the next one, then I would definitely question it. However, there is no golden rule on how much you need to spend. The only thing that I can say is that for junior roles, it's a bit easier and quicker to get to the next level. Once you get into the middle management, into the top management, then the time automatically prolongs, because also the scope of the role is bigger.
Okay.
I would say something between, if I have to give you a concrete number, it will be something between 18 months and 3 years.
Okay.
Something between that.
Okay, thank you very much. So do you have any words on bias from employers? How one can, because someone said it's not an ideal world and sometimes these things exist. So how can one, deal with that?
I think that companies should take it very seriously, and from inside of their organization, they should work for that. I can say that for Adidas, we take that very seriously. For us, the diversity and inclusion topic is super important. We have committees working on that. We have constant workshops to, just make us aware of the biases and give us some tools and give us some strategies how to fight them. If you're a candidate, I would say keep the authenticity, keep the positivity, and try to convey in the best way your skill set and your expertise for the job. This is the best you can do.
Okay, thank you very much. We are out of time, so I'd have to round up here, even though I can still see a few questions coming in. But if that's okay for you, Margarita, people can, reach out to you on LinkedIn. I mean, keep the conversation going because, like I said, this is actually the most important or most interesting slot, I'd say. And I know people still have lots of questions coming in, but thank you for your time. It was a very informative session. And
Thank you
I'm
for
sure
having me.
you really answered or dealt justice to our questions. So thank you very much, and yeah, we'll be in touch. Thank you guys for your attention.
Hopefully helpful. Thank you as well for the platform.
That was a very educative, mind-blowing session with Margarita. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the information you gave us.